Hey everyone, welcome back to Read and Recap. Today, we're diving into one of the most famous novels of all time, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Set during the turbulent times of the French Revolution, this gripping tale follows the lives of two very different men, Charles Darnay, a French aristocrat, and Sidney Carton, a disillusioned English lawyer, who are bound by their love for the same woman. Through themes of sacrifice, justice, and redemption, Dickens explores the chaos and hope that arise in a world turned upside down. Let's take a journey through this classic story of love, revolution, and second chances. Grab a seat, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's dive right in.
Introduction to A Tale of Two Cities. Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, first published in 1859, is a historical novel set during the turbulent period of the French Revolution. It explores themes of resurrection, sacrifice, social injustice, and the tumultuous dynamics between the aristocracy and the oppressed. The novel's dual settings, Paris and London, are used to highlight the contrast between two very different societies. Despite the violence and chaos of revolutionary France, Dickens weaves a narrative of hope, redemption, and selfless love. It is often celebrated for its opening line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times," which encapsulates the paradoxes of the era. The story revolves around several key characters: Charles Darnay, a French aristocrat, Sidney Carton, an English lawyer with a troubled past, and Lucy Manette, a kind-hearted woman whose compassion ties the story's characters together. Through their lives, Dickens explores the broader political and social turmoil of the era while examining deeply personal themes of love, identity, and redemption. Book 1, Recalled to Life. The novel begins in 1775, with Mr. Jarvis Lorry, a banker from Tellson's Bank, traveling from London to Paris. He is on a mission to resurrect Dr. Alexander Manette, who has been imprisoned in the Bastille for 18 years and is now a broken man. Lorry is accompanied by Lucy Manette, Dr. Manette's daughter, who has long believed her father to be dead. When they find Dr. Manette, he has been living in a garret, an attic, and is mentally and physically shattered from his years in captivity. The title of the first book, Recalled to Life, symbolizes Dr. Manette's restoration to life and society after his unjust imprisonment. It also introduces one of the central themes of the novel, resurrection. Dr. Manette's story of suffering and eventual healing becomes a powerful metaphor for the possibility of renewal in a world filled with corruption and oppression. Dr. Manette is nursed back to health through the tender care of Lucy, and he returns with her and Mr. Lorry to London, where they attempt to build a peaceful and stable life together. This period of calm is short-lived, however, as the looming unrest in France begins to cast a shadow over the characters' lives. Book 2, The Golden Thread. This section of the novel shifts focus to Charles Darnay, a French aristocrat who has renounced his family's cruel and oppressive ways. He lives in England and tries to distance himself from his family's tyrannical legacy, particularly from his uncle, the Marquis Saint-Evremond. Darnay is accused of treason in England, but his life is saved by the intervention of Sidney Carton, a brilliant but dissolute lawyer who bears a striking resemblance to Darnay. The golden thread of this section's title refers to Lucy Manette, who becomes a unifying force in the lives of those around her. She marries Charles Darnay, and her love and devotion continue to anchor Dr. Manette, who occasionally relapses into his old prison habits but is ultimately sustained by his daughter's compassion. Lucy also becomes a beacon of hope for Sidney Carton, who falls deeply in love with her, although he knows he is unworthy of her affection. Despite Darnay's efforts to escape his family's dark history, he is drawn back to France by a letter from an old family servant, Gabelle, who is imprisoned and calls for Darnay's help. Darnay feels morally obligated to assist and returns to France, unaware of the danger that awaits him. Book 3, The Track of a Storm. The final section of the novel is set during the height of the French Revolution, when Paris is engulfed in violence and bloodshed. Darnay's return to France proves disastrous, as he is arrested as an enemy of the people and imprisoned. The revolution has reached a fever pitch, and the once oppressed peasants have risen in violent rebellion against the aristocracy. The vengeful Madame Defarge, whose family was destroyed by the Evremond brothers, Charles Darnay's father and uncle, becomes one of the revolution's fiercest leaders. She is determined to see the entire Evremond family, including Darnay, destroyed. Dr. Manette, who had become a symbol of the revolution due to his suffering at the hands of the aristocracy, attempts to use his influence to save Darnay. However, the tide of revolutionary fervor is too strong, and Darnay is sentenced to death by guillotine. In a final act of love and redemption, Sidney Carton steps forward to save Darnay. Carton has led a wasted and unhappy life, but his unrequited love for Lucy has inspired him to find meaning in sacrifice. Using his physical resemblance to Darnay, Carton switches places with him in prison, allowing Darnay to escape with Lucy and their child. In his final moments, Carton finds peace in knowing that his sacrifice has brought happiness and safety to the woman he loves. Themes. Resurrection. The theme of resurrection is central to the novel. Dr. Manette's recovery from his long imprisonment is the most literal representation of this theme, but Sidney Carton's final sacrifice is perhaps the most profound. Carton, who has lived a life of waste and regret, finds redemption through his selfless act of taking Darnay's place at the guillotine. His final words, "It is a far, far better thing that I do, than I have ever done," underscore the novel's message that even in the darkest of times, people have the capacity for renewal and redemption. Sacrifice. Carton's sacrifice is one of the most memorable moments in literature, as he chooses to give his life for the happiness of others. The novel explores the idea that personal sacrifice can lead to collective good, even in a world consumed by violence and chaos. Carton's sacrifice contrasts sharply with the senseless deaths caused by the revolution, offering a vision of hope in the midst of despair. Social injustice and revolution. Dickens presents the French Revolution as a response to generations of injustice and inequality. The novel is filled with depictions of the brutal oppression of the French peasantry, who are left starving and powerless while the aristocracy lives in luxury. However, Dickens is not entirely sympathetic to the revolution. While he acknowledges the need for change, he also criticizes the violence and revenge that come to define the revolution, particularly through characters like Madame Defarge, whose desire for vengeance consumes her. The power of love and compassion. Lucy Manette embodies the theme of love and compassion. Her kindness and devotion bring peace to those around her, particularly her father and Sidney Carton. In a world filled with violence and hatred, Lucy's love stands as a counterpoint to the cruelty of the revolution. Character analysis. Sidney Carton, perhaps the most complex character in the novel, Carton begins as a man disillusioned with life and his own failures. He is intelligent and capable but lacks the motivation to rise above his wasted existence. However, his love for Lucy awakens a desire for redemption within him, and his final act of sacrifice transforms him into a Christ-like figure. Carton's journey from despair to selfless heroism is one of the most compelling arcs in Dickens' work. Charles Darnay. Darnay is portrayed as an honorable and moral man, striving to distance himself from his family's legacy of oppression. While not as dynamic as Carton, Darnay represents the possibility of change and the desire to live according to one's principles. His willingness to return to France and help Gabelle, despite the risks, highlights his sense of duty. Lucy Manette. Lucy is the moral and emotional center of the novel. She is characterized by her gentleness and compassion, and her love becomes a source of strength for her father, her husband, and even Sidney Carton. While Lucy does not undergo significant personal growth, her influence on those around her is profound. Madame Defarge. As one of the novel's primary antagonists, Madame Defarge represents the darker side of the revolution. Her thirst for vengeance, driven by the trauma inflicted on her family by the Evermonds, becomes all-consuming. Defarge's character highlights the danger of allowing hatred to overshadow justice. Dr. Manette. Dr. Manette's character is a symbol of suffering and recovery. His years in the Bastille have left him physically and mentally scarred, but through the love of his daughter, he is able to rebuild his life. However, his past trauma continues to haunt him, illustrating the long-lasting effects of oppression and injustice. Symbolism. The guillotine. The guillotine is one of the most prominent symbols in the novel, representing both the revolutionary justice and the cycle of violence that the French Revolution unleashes. It becomes a symbol of the relentless and impersonal nature of death during the revolution. The wine cask. Early in the novel, a cask of wine is spilled in the streets of Paris, and the impoverished townspeople rush to drink the wine from the gutters. This scene symbolizes the desperation of the French lower classes and foreshadows the blood that will soon flow in the streets during the revolution. The sea. Dickens frequently uses the metaphor of the sea to represent the unstoppable force of the French Revolution. The sea represents the collective power of the people, overwhelming and uncontrollable, capable of both destruction and renewal. The revolutionaries are depicted as a tidal wave, surging uncontrollably, driven by collective anger and desperation. This imagery conveys the idea that once the revolution is set in motion, it becomes an overwhelming force that sweeps away everything in its path, both good and evil. The sea also symbolizes the inevitability of change and the chaotic nature of the revolutionary period. The golden thread that runs through the novel symbolizes Lucy Manette's compassion and her role as the emotional center of the story. She weaves together the lives of her father, her husband Charles Darnay, and even Sidney Carton, binding them in a web of love and loyalty. Her kindness is a lifeline for those around her, offering hope in the midst of despair and connecting the disparate characters within the novel. Style and structure. A Tale of Two Cities is notable for its intricate structure and narrative style. Dickens carefully intertwines the personal stories of the characters with the broader historical context of the French Revolution, creating a novel that is both intimate and epic in scope. The novel's pacing is deliberate, with Dickens gradually building tension as the revolution unfolds and the fates of the characters converge. One of the most striking features of the novel is its use of contrast and juxtaposition, particularly between the two cities of London and Paris. London represents stability and order, while Paris is depicted as a city in the grip of chaos and violence. This contrast reflects the broader theme of duality that runs throughout the novel, as characters wrestle with opposing forces of love and hate, sacrifice and selfishness, resurrection and destruction. Dickens also employs a range of literary devices, including foreshadowing, symbolism, and irony, to enrich the narrative. His use of repetition and parallelism, particularly in key passages such as the opening lines and Carton's final monologue, lends a poetic quality to the novel and reinforces its themes. Social commentary. Through A Tale of Two Cities, Dickens provides a critique of both the French aristocracy and the revolutionary forces that rise up against them. He portrays the aristocracy, particularly the Evrémonde family, as corrupt and indifferent to the suffering of the poor. The Marquis Saint Evrémonde, for instance, is shown as callous and cruel, caring little for the lives of the peasants beneath him. His murder of a child with his carriage, followed by his cold dismissal of the incident, symbolizes the utter disregard the aristocracy has for the lower classes. However, Dickens is equally critical of the revolutionaries, particularly figures like Madame Defarge, who embodies the vengeful and merciless side of the revolution. While Dickens sympathizes with the plight of the oppressed, he is wary of the violent methods used to achieve justice. The bloodlust and mob mentality that consume the revolutionaries are portrayed as destructive forces that ultimately perpetuate a cycle of violence. The novel suggests that justice cannot be achieved through vengeance, and that true change must come from compassion and sacrifice. Conclusion. A Tale of Two Cities is a timeless work that continues to resonate with readers due to its exploration of universal themes such as sacrifice, redemption, and social justice. Dickens' vivid portrayal of the French Revolution, combined with his intricate characterizations and masterful use of symbolism, makes the novel a powerful reflection on the human capacity for both cruelty and compassion. At its heart, the novel is a meditation on the possibility of resurrection and renewal in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Whether it is Dr. Manette's recovery from the trauma of his imprisonment, or Sidney Carton's ultimate act of self-sacrifice, Dickens offers a message of hope in a world filled with injustice and suffering. A Tale of Two Cities reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there is the potential for love, compassion, and transformation.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome content. And to make sure you never miss an upload, tap the notification bell so you're always the first to know when new videos drop. You can also find links to purchase the book in audio, PDF or hard copy from the links in the description. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.